Have you ever noticed how healing often feels like betrayal? Like you're turning your back on the people who raised you, the friends who once understood you, the culture that shaped you, even the version of yourself who survived it all. You try to grow, and suddenly you're too much. You say no, and you become selfish. You set boundaries, and you're accused of being cold. Healing means becoming someone they might not recognize. But maybe the problem isn't who you're becoming. Maybe the problem is who they needed you to stay. Today, we begin the reckoning. The kind of reckoning that asks not for permission, but for truth. There is a moment, unseen, quiet, haunting, where you realize the cost of becoming whole. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It comes in silence, in distance, in the unreturned call, in the text you don't send, in the dinner you decline, in the decision to choose yourself over the performance of obligation. Do you ever feel like someone finally sees the part of you you've always hidden? Here, you don't have to hide anymore. You're safe now. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so we can keep walking this path together. Thank you. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the journey towards self, a path that doesn't invite applause but demands solitude. He knew, as many of us have forgotten, that healing is not about returning to who you were, but unearthing who you were never allowed to be. And this is why it hurts. Because you don't just shed behaviors, you shed masks, you lose roles, you outgrow narratives, you stop playing the caretaker, the pleaser, the peacemaker. You stop being the version of you that made everyone else comfortable. You begin to betray the illusion. And in doing so, you betray the people who believed in it. But this betrayal, this wholly necessary betrayal, is not cruelty, it's clarity. There's a silence that grows between you and those who cannot come with you, and you will be tempted to fill it, to explain, to justify, to shrink again just to be seen. But you must not, because the silence is sacred. It's the space where your real self breathes for the first time. You might find yourself sitting across from someone who once felt like home and realize you no longer speak the same language. Not out of bitterness, but because you have left the dialect of your own denial. This is healing. The uncomfortable, uncelebrated kind. The kind that says, I love you, but I will not abandon myself for you anymore. And that kind of love, rooted in truth, is the kind that transforms. You will walk away from tables you used to beg to sit at. You will stop asking questions that only shame can answer. You will stop trying to earn the right to rest. Because healing is not about being better for them. It's about no longer betraying yourself for them. You will look back one day and see how far you've come. And you will grieve. Not because you regret it, but because you finally honored the version of you that no one else could. This is the paradox of healing. It demands a kind of disloyalty, not to love, but to the lie you once mistook for love. So if you feel the guilt creeping in, if you feel like a traitor for choosing peace, if you wonder whether healing makes you heartless, listen closely. You are not heartless. You are not cold. You are not wrong. You are waking up. And in the ruins of what you had to leave behind, there is a home being built. A home for your truth, yourself, your breath. This is only the beginning. The world will call it betrayal, but in the language of the soul, it is the first act of freedom. What happens when you stop apologizing for the distance? We'll speak of it soon enough. There is a pain that doesn't scream. It whispers. You feel it in the hesitation before answering a call. in the relief of a cancelled plan, in the tightening of your chest when a familiar name lights up your screen. It's not the pain of conflict, it's the pain of pretending. Pretending to care, pretending to agree, pretending to be smaller than you are so others can feel comfortable. We call it love. We call it respect. We call it family. But what if it's just survival? Today we go deeper, into the silence that used to suffocate you. You see, not all loyalty is noble. Some loyalty is fear in disguise. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being alone with who you are when no one's clapping. There's a version of you that was trained to adapt. Smile when it hurt. Nurture those who never asked how you were. Hold the family together by holding in your truth. You became the peacekeeper because no one else would. You became the forgiver because it was expected. You stayed, not because it was safe, but because it was familiar. And here's the trap. The more you heal, the more you see. You start to notice the emotional manipulation hidden beneath their concern. The guilt masked as love. The expectations disguised as connection. You notice how your silence was never peace. It was compliance. How your smile was not joy. It was performance. This is the unraveling. It's not glamorous. It's not cinematic. It happens in small moments. When you say, "I don't agree," when you stop texting first, when you realize you feel safer alone than in rooms that drain you. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we were taught to hide. But there's another shadow, the one we carry for others. The emotional weight, the inherited expectations, the role passed down like a script you never got to write. Healing means setting it down, not with rage, but with reverence. Because you are not rejecting them. You are releasing the version of you that was never real. This disloyalty is not rebellion. It's returning. Returning to the self buried under years of masks. And as you return, they may not follow. They may shame you, guilt you, question your change. But listen, if someone benefits from your self-betrayal, their love was never love. It was control. So let them call you distant. Let them say you've changed. Let them miss the version of you that abandoned yourself for their comfort. Because they will, and that's okay. You are not obligated to be loyal to your own wounding. You are allowed to outgrow what broke you. Healing asks of you one brave thing, to stand in the fire of who you truly are, even if no one claps. Especially when no one claps. What if the silence after your truth is not punishment, but purification? Will continue when the masks begin to fall. They said you were strong because you never cried, because you held it in, because you kept going. But maybe they were wrong. Maybe what they called strength was just endurance. Maybe what they praised was your ability to abandon yourself over and over again. What if true strength isn't how much you can take, but how willing you are to feel? Let's talk about the kind of healing that breaks you open. There is a grief that arrives not when someone dies, but when you finally admit that a version of you is no longer living, the version that tolerated too much, that stayed too long, that kept the peace at the cost of your own voice. That version, she was brave. He was devoted. They were trying, but they were not free. And now, as you heal, you feel something deeper than sadness. You feel the ache of recognition, the ache of remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Carl Jung believed that no tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. And so this descent into shadow, into old pain, into truth, is not regression. It is initiation. You must go back to the rooms where you silenced yourself, not to punish, but to listen, to hear the voice you buried under compliance, to retrieve the parts you exiled for being too much. Healing is not linear. It spirals. It loops you back to the same people, the same patterns. But each time you're carrying more awareness. Each time you say no a little sooner. You leave a little earlier. You love yourself a little louder. And in that, you begin to reclaim the self that never truly left. Just hidden. Just quiet. Just waiting for you to choose her again. There will be days when you miss the numbness, because clarity hurts. Seeing clearly means grieving fully, and grieving means letting go of the fantasy that they'll change, that it'll be different, that your pain had a purpose beyond awakening. You will cry, not because you're weak, but because you finally stopped lying. You'll feel anger, but this time it won't consume you. It will clarify you. Anger is not the enemy. Repression is. And as you reclaim your voice, you will notice something powerful. The world doesn't fall apart when you stop being the one who holds it all together. They adjust, or they leave. But either way, you remain whole, breathing, sovereign. This is the new strength, the one that doesn't ask you to sacrifice your softness. The one that doesn't shame your tears. To feel is not weakness. To feel is to return. And when you return to yourself, the world changes shape. You no longer chase what depletes you. You no longer explain your boundaries to those who benefit from crossing them. You sit with discomfort. You breathe through it. And in that breath, you choose yourself again. This is the quiet revolution, not the one with fireworks, but the one with exhale, with rest, with truth. So, if you find yourself weeping for no reason, if you feel raw, exposed, uncertain, good. It means you're not running anymore. It means your soul is safe with you now. The grief will pass, but the truth it brings, that will stay. And from that truth, a new version of you will rise. We'll meet that version when the fire begins to cleanse, not consume. There comes a point where the healing no longer feels noble. It feels violent, not to others, but to everything inside you that was built on silence. You wake up one morning and realize you can no longer fake it. Not the smile, not the small talk, not the survival. And suddenly everything starts to shake, not because you're falling apart, but because the old scaffolding is coming down. This is not a breakdown, it's a burn-through. Let's talk about what it means to lose the life that was never truly yours. For years you were told that being good meant being agreeable, being worthy meant being wanted, being strong meant being silent. So you adapted, you polished your edges, you mastered the art of smiling through the sting. You convinced yourself that peace was the absence of conflict, even if it meant a war within. But healing doesn't make you quiet, it makes you honest. And honesty at first sounds like anger. It sounds like defiance, because the first time you say no with your whole chest, it will echo like an earthquake. People will flinch. They'll accuse you of changing. They'll call it overreacting, selfish, cold. But don't flinch, because this is what reclaiming yourself sounds like. It sounds like disruption. It sounds like shaking off the sleep of generations. Carl Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's what this stage is. A reckoning, a reclamation. It's waking up and seeing how much of your life was scripted by fear. How many of your choices were just reactions dressed up as decisions? How much of your personality is really just protection? So you begin the purge, not of people, not of love, but of illusion. You look at your relationships and ask, who would still be here if I stopped performing? Who loves me, not the role I've played? You look at your work and ask, is this feeding my soul or feeding the story that I must always prove my worth? You look at your past and ask, was that love or was it need? Was that connection or just trauma bonding? And then you sit with the answers. You grieve them. You let them hurt. Because this time you're not numbing it away. This is what it means to truly heal. Not to patch the cracks, but to break the walls. You might lose friends. You might lose family. You might lose the sense of self that was built to be acceptable. But in the ashes, something real begins to grow. Not better, not more likable, but real. You start to feel again. Colors look different. Food tastes better. Silence becomes sacred, not scary. You no longer chase people. You no longer chase validation. You no longer beg to be chosen, because now you choose you. And that choice ripples. It reshapes the whole world. You no longer need to scream to be heard. Your boundaries speak for you. Your energy shifts rooms before your words even arrive. There is a stillness in you now. Not because you're at peace with everyone, but because you're at peace with not being understood. And that is a power no one can take. Healing doesn't mean everyone will love the new you. It means you no longer need them to. The deeper you go, the more you see. Healing was never about returning to who you were. It was about unbecoming everything you weren't. The masks fall off, not with drama, but with relief. And beneath all the layers, you find someone who was never broken, just buried, just quiet, just waiting. So if it feels like your life is crumbling, good. Maybe it wasn't yours to begin with. Let the scaffolding fall. Let the illusion burn. Let the silence speak. You are not falling apart. You are falling into truth. And in that truth, there is a home waiting for you. Not the one they built, but the one you build. We will walk through that fire. And on the other side, we'll speak of the self that no longer hides. There is a silence after the storm, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of sovereignty. You do not rush to fill it. You do not rush to explain it. You let it stretch. You let it breathe. Because you have learned, not everything lost was a loss. Not every ending was a tragedy. Some endings are doorways, and some doorways are invitations to finally come home. Today we step into that home. The world teaches urgency. Fix it, solve it, heal it, be better, be faster, be someone else. But true healing is not urgent. True healing is patient. It unfolds in its own time, on its own terms. After the burn-through, there is rebuilding, but not rebuilding to impress, not rebuilding to perform. Rebuilding to be. You begin by reclaiming the smallest things, your mornings, your breath, the way you look at yourself in the mirror. Not with judgment, but with reverence. You no longer seek validation in the same old places. You no longer hand your worth to strangers and ask them to define it. You define it. You embody it. You wear it like your own skin. There is a quiet pride in this. A knowing, not loud, not desperate, just present. You start choosing differently, not from fear, not from guilt, but from alignment. You notice how no rolls off your tongue without apology, how yes feels sacred, not obligatory. You notice who stays, not the ones who needed you broken, but the ones who celebrate your wholeness. You find yourself laughing from your belly again, sleeping through the night, trusting your own company. You realize that loneliness was never about being alone. It was about being unseen. And now you see yourself. That changes everything. Carl Jung spoke of individuation as the journey toward becoming who you truly are. Not a copy, not an echo, but an original note in the symphony of existence. And that note is starting to sing. You no longer look back with regret. You look back with gratitude, because every version of you was necessary. Every fall, every ache, every wrong turn. They were all pathways home. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what did it awaken in me? You stop demanding closure from those who wounded you, because you understand. Healing is not owed an apology. Healing is a choice, your choice. You stop trying to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop offering explanations to those who feed on your confusion. You conserve your energy. You protect your peace. You become selective with your battles. Not every trigger deserves your attention. Not every insult deserves your reply. Some things you bless with your silence. Some battles you win by walking away. And in this new life, born from ashes, you realize you are not rebuilding who you used to be. You are birthing who you were always meant to become. Not polished, not perfect, but whole. So if you find yourself standing in the aftermath, unsure, trembling, tender, smile. You made it. You walked through fire and came out carrying light. Not the light they gave you, but the light you found within yourself. Protect it, cherish it, feed it, because now you are not loyal to fear. You are not loyal to survival. You are loyal to the self. The real work begins now, the sacred work. To live as if your soul was telling the truth, because it is, and the world is finally ready to hear it.